Alright guys, pose the question. Once your plants are done, do you pull them out? We'll find out in this episode of Grow the Earth. Alright guys, what we have here is a cabbage that we harvested a couple days ago. Now, this one looked like that one, but much bigger. The one that we harvested from right here, we actually weighed it, and it was like 4.5 pounds, so a fairly large cabbage. Now, there is one thing about cabbage, and a couple of other plants, and I'll show you those here in a minute, is that once you harvest a head of cabbage, it is not done. It's not done because from these points right here, right in between where all these leaves are growing, you will have extra heads of cabbage come out. I call them a second chance plant. Now these are going to be much smaller. They'll probably be, I don't know, they'll probably be about that size over there. About the size of that one right there. But still, they will be another head of cabbage. And you don't have to work for it. It's a very interesting thing, you know, that as I've mentioned before, the purpose of most of your plants in your garden is to go to seed and to make more of itself. Cabbage is no different. That little head is meant to flower. The head that you harvest is meant to grow in and become a flower in the springtime. When you cut it off, that plant knows that it hasn't flowered yet, and it is going to attempt to grow more heads in order to flower. Because it thinks it's been eaten off, because you've harvested it, it's going to actually put out more heads in order to make more flowers to give it a better chance of reproducing. So again guys, don't pull out your cabbage once you've harvested a head. It's not through. Alright guys, and just like your cabbage, your cauliflower and your broccoli are exactly the same. Now what I mean by that is they are a second chance vegetable. Because once you harvest from the center of these, you're actually harvesting a flower. If you let a broccoli or cauliflower go too far, what will happen is those little bitty parts of a broccoli head are actually buds. They're actually flowers. And what will happen is those will start to begin to spread out, and those will actually start to flower and make seed. So if you come into your broccoli or your cauliflower and you harvest that head off of the center, again, the plant thinks that it hasn't reproduced yet, it hasn't flowered. We'll bring it a little bit closer and we can see right where they're going to start coming out at. Alright, so right down in here, you'll see that in between where these leaves are coming out, you will have other, like a limb come out basically, is the best way I can explain it. And they will put on a flower. And they'll be much smaller than what you originally harvest, but you'll get more. They'll be about this size. You know, they'll be a floret, I guess is the best way to put it. But this plant will put on more because it thinks it hasn't flowered yet, so it wants to flower, so it'll put on these florets, hoping that whatever took its initial flower will not take its new flower. So, guys, this is another example of a second chance plant. Let's walk over to the lettuce bed, and I want to show you there where we harvested in a couple of videos ago of how these plants have come back. Alright, so guys, again, this is where we harvested from last time. If you remember, I came in here with a pair of scissors and cut these off and pulled from the outside leaves. And if you look, it's all grown back. Beautiful lettuce. Didn't harm the plants at all. It's perfect. Looks like I never picked from it. So again, this is another kind of a second chance plant, but now you have to harvest this a certain way, but it is a second chance plant that will grow back and continue to give and give as long as the season provides. All right. Now I'm going to take you over to some some green bunching onions that we have, and I'm going to show you there how we harvest green onions year round, and we only have to replant once a year. Now guys, here you see these green onions here. Now these are getting a little big. It's probably about time to pull these out and start over again. Now with these, when you cut these off here, we come in and we just cut these off with a pair of scissors. And they regrow and regrow and regrow. These onions here have been here for about a year. And I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer, and I want to show you where we cut and why we cut there. Okay, now guys, with these onions, there is a certain place that you've got to cut. And what I mean by that is, you see where all these are coming out right here? We don't want to cut here. You want to cut about right here. And then you can take all this beautiful green and you can chop it up. Now with these green onions, we do multiple things. We keep them we go ahead and chop them up and keep them in the refrigerator in a little Tupperware container for, you know, putting in soups, putting in our, you know, whatever you want to cook with for fresh cooking. But we'll also take these and put them in our dehydrator, dry them out, put them in an old spice container, and that way we'll have dried green onion for putting in other dishes. If you dry these, once these are dried, if you put them on a brisket, they work wonderful, because the fat from the brisket will actually kind of rehydrate them a little bit, and will add that flavor into your barbecue. All right, guys, so that's our episode for today. I just want to encourage you guys, because I'm very active on Facebook. If you guys are seeing me on Facebook at a couple of the gardening forums and Facebook groups and so forth, I see a lot of people who are worried about they're doing something wrong. You know, am I doing something wrong with my compost? You know, how do I need to amend my soil? I feel I'm doing something wrong because I added this or added that. Now granted, some of those things can be harmful to your plants. With compost, I assure you, with compost you cannot do anything wrong. Compost is the most natural thing in the world, and you can't do it wrong. Because if you don't have a hot compost pile, you have a cold compost pile. It will break down. Everything that is natural and grows from the earth will return to the earth. All right, and I touched on that in my compost video. 2, don't be afraid to experiment. If I had first pulled out those cabbage plants, once I harvested a head, I'd have never found out that they put on more cabbage afterwards. If I had pulled out my broccoli and my cauliflower, as soon as I harvested that head, I'd have never found out that they put on extra florets afterwards. Don't be too hasty. Don't be afraid to experiment. You know, what works for me here may not work for you. We may only be 50 miles apart, but we each have our own little microclimate and our own soil that we're dealing with, and our own shade and our own sun patterns and so forth. You know, some things that grow here for me perfectly fine may not grow good for you because of the wind that you have. You may have a prevailing wind that happens all the time that is going to hamper you growing broccoli and cauliflower or corn or any other amount of things. You know, we just have to put these things in God's hands, have Him guide us, have Him teach us, and show us how He would grow these things. All right, guys, we're going to end that here. As always, pray over your family, pray over your garden, and have a great day.